Have you ever felt like you are living a life that is slightly too small for you? As if the person everyone else sees, the competent colleague, the patient parent, the easygoing friend, is only a fraction of who you truly are? There's a quiet dissonance, isn't there, between the mask you wear and the vast, complex reality churning beneath the surface. Perhaps you experience sudden eruptions of emotion that seem to come out of nowhere, a sharp anger at a minor inconvenience, a profound sadness when everything is seemingly fine, or a gripping anxiety that paralyzes you when you need to act. You watch these reactions unfold, almost as a spectator, and wonder, who was that? It leaves you feeling disconnected, not just from others, but from yourself. You are navigating your life, yet you feel profoundly lost, constantly surprised by the terrain of your own heart. We live in a culture that prizes emotional control, urging us to maintain composure, to keep the surface smooth. We are taught to manage our behavior, to perfect our presentation. But what if this focus on the surface is the very thing keeping us fragmented? What if the goal isn't control, but wholeness? Imagine yourself as a cartographer, tasked with mapping the territory of your inner world. This landscape is vast, encompassing bright meadows of joy, ancient forests of memory, and deep subterranean rivers of instinct and emotion. Emotional intelligence, in its truest sense, is the accuracy and completeness of this inner map. It is the ability to navigate this terrain with wisdom, to know where the pitfalls are, where the resources lie, and how the weather patterns move. But, for most of us, our maps are woefully incomplete. We stick to the well-trodden paths, the familiar routes of habit and reaction. Large sections of our map are blank, marked only with the warning, "Here be dragons." We fear these uncharted territories. We fear the intensity of our anger, the depth of our sorrow, the vulnerability of our needs, and so we live on the edges of our own existence, reacting to dragons we haven't even truly seen. Today, we are going to venture into the Uncharted Self. We will explore the profound connection between mindfulness and emotional intelligence, but we will go deeper than the usual behavioral strategies. We will look through the lens of the great pioneer of the inner world, Carl Jung. Jung understood that the journey to emotional mastery is not merely about managing symptoms. It is about integrating the hidden parts of ourselves. It is about the radical act of becoming whole. We will discover that mindfulness is the compass that guides us, the light that allows us to see the terrain clearly, and the courage to finally map the dragons. If this idea of exploring your inner landscape, of seeking wholeness rather than just control, is already sparking a sense of recognition within you, take a moment to subscribe to Decode Explained. We journey through these intricate territories of the mind together, every day, helping you understand the profound psychology that shapes your life. When we talk about emotional intelligence, EI, we often refer to the model popularized by Daniel Goleman. He breaks EI down into 4 domains: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. This framework is incredibly useful, but when we integrate the insights of Carl Jung, this framework transforms from a model of performance into a path toward what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming the unique, whole human being you were meant to be. Let us begin with the first domain, self-awareness. Goleman describes this as the ability to recognize and understand your moods, emotions, and drives, as well as their effect on others. It is the foundation of EI. Without it, we are flying blind. Mindfulness is the practice that cultivates this awareness. It is the act of intentionally paying attention to the present moment, non-judgmentally. It allows us to observe the flow of our thoughts, feelings, and sensations as they arise without getting swept away by them. We shift from being the emotion to being the observer of the emotion. But this is where Jung's perspective radically deepens our understanding. Jung realized that our conscious awareness is only a small island in a vast ocean of the unconscious, and lurking in these depths is what he termed the shadow. The shadow is not inherently evil. It is simply the repository for all the parts of ourselves that we have disowned, repressed, or deemed unacceptable by our family, culture, or our own ego. It holds our rage, our selfishness, our forbidden desires, but it also holds our untapped potential, our raw creativity, our forgotten strengths, what is sometimes called the golden shadow. Most approaches to emotional intelligence implicitly encourage us to strengthen the ego and suppress the shadow. We try to be nice, positive, and in control. But Jung offered a profound warning. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. When we ignore the shadow, it doesn't disappear. It leaks out. It manifests as those inexplicable overreactions, the sudden bouts of depression, the self-sabotaging behaviors. The dragons we refuse to map end up scorching our lives. Mindfulness, then, is not just about noticing our conscious feelings. It is the tool we use to safely turn toward the shadow. It is the practice of looking into the dark corners of our inner map without flinching. This requires a shift in how we practice mindfulness. We must dismantle the common misconception that mindfulness is about achieving a state of blissful calm. It is not about clearing the mind of bad feelings. As Jung understood, no tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. True self-awareness requires the courage to acknowledge the hellish roots as well as the heavenly branches. When a difficult emotion arises, say, envy, a purely behavioral approach might try to quickly reframe it into gratitude. But a mindful, Jungian approach invites us to sit with the envy, to feel its texture, its heat, its energy in our body. We ask it, "What information do you have for me? What disowned desire are you pointing toward?" We observe the shadow with the non-judgmental curiosity of a seasoned explorer. We are not trying to fight the dragon. We are trying to understand it. And in that understanding, we begin the process of integration. We realize that our anger is not just destructive. It is also a powerful source of energy for change and boundary setting. Our fear is not just cowardice. It is also a deep well of intuition and caution. By mindfully integrating the shadow, we reclaim the energy that was bound up in repression. We become more complete, more authentic, and less reactive. The map of the self expands. Once we begin the difficult work of acknowledging the shadow and cultivating self-awareness, we can move to the second domain of emotional intelligence, self-management. Self-management is the ability to use our awareness of our emotions to stay flexible and direct our behavior positively. It is often summarized as managing our disruptive impulses, but again, Jung provides a more nuanced perspective. The goal is not simply suppression, but conscious choice. If self-awareness involves recognizing the shadow, self-management involves contending with another key Jungian concept, the persona. The persona is the social mask we wear to navigate the world. It is the curated collection of behaviors, attitudes, and roles that we present to others. It is the competent professional, the loving spouse, the rebellious artist. The persona is necessary. It allows us to function in society, to interact smoothly, and to protect the vulnerable parts of ourselves. The danger arises when we over-identify with the persona, when we forget that it is a mask, when we believe that the curated image is who we truly are. Jung warned that individuals who identify too strongly with their persona become shallow, brittle, and disconnected from their deeper selves. They live a life based on external expectations rather than internal truth. How many of us are exhausted by the effort of maintaining a persona that is fundamentally misaligned with our inner reality? We feel the pressure to appear constantly happy, constantly productive, constantly agreeable. This effort consumes enormous amounts of energy and leaves us feeling hollow and resentful. Mindfulness helps us create a healthy separation between our authentic self and the persona. When we practice mindfulness, we become aware of the moments when we are slipping into a role. We notice the subtle shifts in our posture, our tone of voice, our breathing when we are trying to impress or placate someone. We begin to ask ourselves, who is speaking right now? Is it my authentic self, or is it the persona? What am I trying to achieve, and at what cost? This awareness gives us the power of the pause. As the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl famously wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." Mindfulness expands that space. It allows us to choose whether the persona is the appropriate tool for the situation or whether a more authentic, vulnerable response is called for. Consider the practice of stop. Stop, take a breath, observe, proceed. When we feel the surge of reactivity or the pressure to put on the mask, we pause. We observe the internal pressure, the fear of judgment, the desire for approval, and then we choose how to proceed. Sometimes, we choose to use the persona consciously. We recognize that a professional meeting requires a certain decorum, but we do so without losing touch with our inner reality. We wear the mask, but the mask does not wear us. Other times, we choose to lower the mask. We choose authenticity over performance. This requires courage because it means exposing our vulnerabilities and risking disapproval. But it is the path to true connection and vitality. Effective self-management, from a Jungian perspective, is not about perfecting the persona. It is about the conscious dance between the inner world and the outer demands, guided by the wisdom of the integrated self. It is about knowing when to assert our shadow-infused strength and when to deploy our socially attuned persona, all while remaining rooted in our core values. We have explored the internal work of emotional intelligence, the integration of the shadow, self-awareness, and the conscious use of the persona self-management. Now we turn our attention outward, to the realm of relationships. This brings us to the third domain, social awareness, or empathy. Social awareness is the ability to accurately pick up on emotions in other people and understand what is really going on with them. It is the capacity to resonate with the experience of another. Mindfulness is essential for cultivating empathy because it quiets our internal noise enough so that we can truly listen to others. When we are present, we are not distracted by our own internal dialogue, our judgments, or our impatience. We can listen not just to the words, but to the emotions beneath the words. But the journey to true empathy is fraught with pitfalls, and Jung identified the most significant one: projection. Projection is an unconscious defense mechanism where we attribute our own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, or motives to another person. In essence, we see our own shadow in others. When we have not done the work of integrating our own shadow, our perception of others is distorted by these projections. The colleague we perceive as arrogant might actually be reflecting our own disowned ambition. The friend we judge as needy might be mirroring our own repressed vulnerability. The political group we despise might be carrying the weight of our own unacknowledged rage. As Jung stated, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. This is a radical reframe of interpersonal conflict. The irritation is not a problem to be solved. It is a clue to be investigated. Mindfulness is the tool that allows us to recognize and retract our projections. When we feel a strong emotional charge in response to someone else, a disproportionate irritation, an intense admiration, or a deep resentment, this is a signal that a projection is likely active. We can use mindfulness to pause and turn our attention inward. Instead of focusing on the other person's perceived flaws, we ask ourselves, what part of myself am I seeing in this person? What quality are they expressing that I have disowned in myself? This practice requires humility and rigorous self-honesty. It is much easier to judge others than to confront our own shadow. But when we retract our projections, something miraculous happens. We begin to see the other person clearly, not as a screen for our own inner drama, but as a complex, flawed human being, just like us. The fog of projection lifts, and genuine empathy becomes possible. We realize that we are all navigating the same human experience, struggling with the same fundamental challenges of the shadow and the persona. This mindful approach to social awareness also helps us navigate the complexities of the collective unconscious, the deep layer of the psyche that holds the shared memories, instincts, and archetypes of humanity. We begin to recognize the universal patterns of emotion and behavior that unite us rather than the superficial differences that divide us. When we listen mindfully, grounded in the awareness of our own shadow and the reality of projection, we create a safe space for others to lower their own masks. We invite them into a relationship based on authenticity, rather than performance. This is the foundation of true connection. Finally, we arrive at the fourth and most complex domain of emotional intelligence, relationship management. This is the ability to use our awareness of our own emotions and those of others to manage interactions successfully. It encompasses communication, conflict resolution, inspiration, and influence. From a conventional perspective, relationship management is often seen as a set of techniques for getting what we want from others: persuasion, negotiation, networking. But from a Jungian perspective, relationships are not a means to an end. They are the crucible of transformation. Jung believed that the journey of individuation does not happen in isolation. It happens in the messy, complicated arena of relationships. Our interactions with others, our conflicts, our attractions, our collaborations, are the friction that polishes the stone of the self. When we approach relationships mindfully, armed with the insights of the integrated self, our interactions transform. Our communication shifts from manipulation to authenticity. We no longer rely on a polished persona to impress or persuade. Instead, we speak from a place of vulnerability and truth, grounded in the awareness of our own needs and boundaries. As researcher Brené Brown emphasizes, vulnerability is the birthplace of connection, creativity, and courage. When we dare to lower the mask, we invite others to do the same. Our approach to conflict changes radically. We recognize that conflict is not a threat to the relationship, but an opportunity for deeper understanding. We approach conflict mindfully, recognizing our projections, managing our reactivity, and listening deeply to the other person's perspective. We shift from a mindset of me versus you to a mindset of us versus the problem. We are able to hold the tension of opposites, the fundamental paradoxes of human relationships. We can be both strong and vulnerable, compassionate and boundaried, independent and connected. This ability to hold complexity is the hallmark of the individuated self. Furthermore, our ability to inspire and influence others changes. We no longer lead through control or coercion. Instead, we lead by example, by embodying the wholeness we seek. When we have done the difficult work of integrating our own shadow, we radiate a sense of authenticity and depth that naturally inspires others. We become a presence that invites others into their own journey of transformation. The lighthouse keeper doesn't shout at the ships to avoid the rocks. They simply shine their light brightly, and the ships naturally navigate towards safety. Similarly, the individuated self doesn't force change on others. They simply embody their own wholeness, and others are naturally drawn toward that light. We have journeyed far today, exploring the profound intersection of mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and the timeless wisdom of Carl Jung. We have seen that this journey is not about achieving a state of perfect emotional control or blissful calm. It is about the courageous, lifelong process of individuation, the mapping of the uncharted self. It is the work of acknowledging and integrating the shadow, rather than fearing and repressing it. It is the practice of using the persona consciously, rather than being worn by the mask. It is the humility of recognizing and retracting our projections, allowing genuine empathy to emerge. And it is the art of engaging in relationships as a crucible for transformation. This journey is not easy. It requires us to confront the parts of ourselves we would rather ignore. It demands rigorous self-honesty and a willingness to sit with discomfort. As Jung himself acknowledged, there is no coming to consciousness without pain, but the rewards are immeasurable. When we commit to the path of wholeness, we reclaim the energy that was bound up in repression and performance. We become more authentic, more vital, and more connected. We begin to live a life that is aligned with our deepest truth. The map of the self is never complete. There will always be new territories to explore, new depths to plumb. But with the compass of mindfulness and the wisdom of the integrated self, we can navigate this journey with courage, grace, and a profound sense of purpose. As you move through your week, I invite you to practice noticing the subtle signals of the shadow. When you feel a surge of disproportionate irritation or judgment, either toward yourself or others, Pause. Turn your attention inward with curiosity. Ask yourself, what part of myself am I disowning right now? Simply observe what arises, without judgment. This simple act of mindful awareness is the first step toward integration. You are the cartographer of your inner world. It is time to embrace the adventure of mapping the whole territory, dragons and all, for it is in the depths of the uncharted self that your true treasure lies.